Good morning. Welcome to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alden Iowani. Our very special guest this morning is Atrisco Heritage Jaguars head boys basketball coach Steve Heredia. He just got his 200th win Friday night against Rio Rancho, 101-97. Coach, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, Ed. I was glad I could make time to pull away from what I normally do here at the school.
Well, Coach, you're a busy guy, man, and you got Cleveland tomorrow night. And, we interviewed Daniel Steverson at halftime of your game, and they were all there, man. Storm out, and Coach Cole, I'm sure, was watching somewhere. Coach Rivera was out there. Steverson was out there. Jay Hill was out there, who coaches Daniel Steverson. So I'll tell you what, the district atmosphere, and again, your 200th win. I didn't even mention that. Your 200th win. Yeah, I think I did. But what an atmosphere it was. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Started with the JV game. That one lady was really yelling. I don't know who she is, but I was laughing because she's making a lot of noise for a Trisco Heritage. But talk a little bit about that game, Coach. I called it a classic, man. Marquise had 40 points. I think Renfro had 26, I believe, and just an unbelievable game. You don't see a lot of teams scoring that high in the state or in the metro area. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts were about that game.
Yeah, I mean, now that I've had time to reflect, I was wondering if anyone was going to play some defense, but it was just one of those nights where both coaches decided to let their teams go and just let them get up and down. And fortunately, I think for the crowd, the ball was going in both ways. Rio Rancho shot the ball really well. We shot it extremely well. And like you said, you don't see that style of game very often in our state. So I was glad that we were a part of that.
Back in the day, you and I talked about it. You played in Las Cruces in '93 under head coach Mike Harr and coached a little bit with Las Cruces boys coach Will Benjamin, a very good friend, a good man. Uh, so back in the day, Coach, we mentioned when Coach Tasker was around and Coach Robinson at Clovis, you saw that, and you saw that without 3-point shots, the kind of fast-paced basketball, pressing, scoring layups. You saw that in that game on Friday night. Really, Rio Rancho could have hit 100 easily. They missed some free throws, 2 or 3 layups. That I talked to Wally Salata on Saturday, and Wally's a very, very good friend. I've known Wally for years. He's called him the mad scientist. He never gets away from basketball either. But he was telling me that Ed, he missed layups the way we did. And Jaden Johnson for Rio Rancho was fantastic. He had a great game. But that kind of scoring, Coach, uh, I think we mentioned you mentioned this to me in the interview after the game. You speeded up Rio Rancho in the first quarter, and I thought Coach Salata was prepared for that press because a couple of baseball passes that you really don't see as far those are 50, not even 50-50s. Those are like 20-80s if they succeed, and he had a couple of them. So I thought he did a good job in preparing for your press. But talk a little bit about that. You mentioned you sped them up, and they responded well in the first quarter. You made some adjustments in the second going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to speed them up. That was the game plan, but I think it kind of reverted back to us saying, okay, that's not working. So we went to plan B. We didn't entirely get away from pressure. We just moved it to the half court. I thought that bothered them more. They did hit a couple of home run passes that honestly, that's the first time I think we've given up a long pass like that in our full court pressure all season. So they are low percentage, and we do a really good job of defending that. But I mean, you mix good timing with a perfect pass, and it's going to be a layup when you gamble like that in the full court. Back to the Hobbs Clovis games back in the day. I'm a Hobbs historian. I was mentored by Mike Smith, who played at Hobbs. He was a McDonald's All American. I coached under him. My first high school coaching job at Las Cruces High School. So I'm very familiar with Coach Tasker. I had the pleasure of meeting him and hanging out with him several summers, and was able to pick his brain as a early 20-something-year-old aspiring basketball coach. So I'm very blessed to have that under my sleeve a little bit.
I talked to Wallace Williams. Wallace Williams and I played against each other in the North South game in 1980, and I told you that score was 120 to 113 without 3-point shots. Imagine Bubba Jennings with 3-point shots back then. Bubba's amazing, but one of the greatest shooters we've seen in New Mexico history. Wallace was telling me about their press and how they their responsibilities in that press. And that press, I told him, I said, hey, I thought on the back end you could get some layups. And he says, well, not really. I mean, think about the athletes they had. Not just Wallace, Jeff Taylor. The Jeffrey Taylor Jr. The list goes on and on. Vince Taylor, Mike Smith. You mentioned Jay Willman. They that list goes on. I'm probably the earlier guys. The 1970 team averaged 114.6 points per game. 114, and you think about that. That's without 3-point shots. A couple of my friends from Albuquerque High played them in the state championship, and they helped. They were there at half, and then they put the blitz on in the second half. 4 of those guys went on to play D1. So if you think about the players that Coach Tasker had coached, and you're a historian of Hobbs, Bill Bridges played in the pros. Unbelievable the list of players at Hobbs High School.
Yeah, they flew around. They really flew around, and I always joke with them. I say, Carlsbad and Roswell and the teams they played a lot, Lovington, the teams on the east side of the state. I don't know if they knew what a press breaker was. That's how groundbreaking Coach Tasker's pressure defense was in the full court. I don't know that coaches fully understood how to break that press and how to gain advantages using that pressure to their advantage. I say that wholeheartedly, just half jokingly as well. I'm sure they had an idea of what they were trying to do, but because their athletes were so phenomenal, I think it just didn't matter. And then, like you said, you mentioned a couple of guys who are 6'7", 6'9", superior athletes protecting the rim on the backside of the press. It's like, where the hell do we get points from? We finally handle the pressure in the full court. Now we have to go score against a 6'9" shot blocker who's playing Division I or overseas or NBA basketball later in their career.
Jeffrey Taylor, the Jeffrey Taylor Sr., who passed away about 3 years ago. Coach, I've been around the game 50 years, man, maybe a little bit longer. And, watching state tournament right there and there when the seats were not media seats right there on the bottom. I never saw anybody jump higher than him ever. I never did. And he got up so high in the square, and it just, your mouth would like, wow, just gaping. You're like, man, I cannot believe how he played 3 years for the Rockets. And that's when the teams were lesser rosters. And the guy was incredible ball player. His son Jeffrey also played in the pros. But Wallace Williams was not only a great basketball player, but a 440 guy for Hobbs on the track team. That guy was unbelievable, man. If you didn't hear about, if there's no Bubba Jennings, Wallace Williams would have been the greatest player. He scored 81 points as an 8th grader. And Wallace is a quiet guy. He's not going to, these things I had to find out from somebody else, because Wallace is not a braggart in any way, shape, or form. But that's just some of the guys that played at Hobbs. Coach, again, 200 victories. Got to congratulate you for that. You started at Las Cruces High as an assistant, went to Chaparral, Centennial. You had a great run at Centennial, Coach. A great run there for a couple of years, and then you came to Atrisco. I want to talk about your early coaching career. Talk about being at Las Cruces, at Chaparral, and Centennial. Your teams made, I believe, a final or semifinals. Is that right?
So let's back up, I guess. Cruces High, where I first started in '99 under Coach Smith, just kind of worked my way up from C-team head to JV head to varsity assistant, and then landed in Chaparral in '08 with my first head job. And that's where I think I really learned how to coach a program. We didn't have the talent or the numbers that we had at Las Cruces High, so we really had to learn how to coach and put our kids in positions to not win games, but to keep the games competitive. The winning kind of was a secondary thing, and the primary was, let's keep it close. We took over a team that won 1 game. They're a second-year school, brand new, so there was some excitement, but not a lot of expectation. So we implemented some expectation and some accountability and kind of went from there. In year 2 and 3, we qualified for state and played for a district championship. So we're pretty proud of that. Then we move on to bigger and better at Centennial. And You know, I think we win 13 games in year one with freshmen and sophomores, but didn't make the state tournament. So that kind of left a little salty taste in our mouth. Year two, we have everybody back, obviously, and make a Final Four run, lose to Roswell, the eventual state champions. And I remember handshaking uh, with Coach Britt after the game, and he told me, he said, "Next year's your year." And I said, "Gosh, I hope so, Coach." And sure enough, we end up winning it all that's next season, and then have another Final Four year after that. So yes, 3 years in a row of Final Four, state championship, and Final Four we're blessed to be in that position to be able to say, hey, we're playing in the pit every year, knowing we're going back, knowing we have a chance. You just don't get that all the time. As talent comes and goes, you would hope that the strength of what you've built in prior seasons would remain, but that doesn't always stay, the norm. And then from there we move to Albuquerque, move our family, move our home of 20 years to Atrisco, and I come on as an assistant for Adrian Ortega and learn a little bit from him. I think we learned a lot from each other, and he kind of knew he wasn't going to last much longer, and he kind of brought me in as his assistant to take over, which is a huge honor because of the program that he established from the ground up. And the last 3 years I've been the guy in charge, and we've kind of done okay there.
It's better than okay. Coach Adrian Ortega, the former head man at Sandia, what was Oñate back in the day, and a great player at Las Vegas, Robertson, back in the day. And man, that guy, sheesh. A lot of respect for him, man. But I think about it, you think about a guy's built like a dang tank. I see him at the gym sometimes, and he wears it, right? He wears that swag on him, no question about it. And I mean that with the most respect. That's the way Coach Ortega is, And I bet you did learn a lot from each other, because I've known some people that have coached with Coach Ortega, and he'll tell them, hey, what is this guy going to run? If somebody, one of my friends coached for another coach in town, and he told him in the huddle, what's this guy going to run? You coached for him for 7 years. What's he going to run? So you got to be ready. You've got to be ready. And I'm sure, you haven't played coach under Coach Smith and, played for Coach Carr. You've seen some different philosophies, and Coach Ortega definitely had his own.
Yeah, definitely. He has a military background, and that's kind of how he approached his practice and his games and his game plan, and very regimented. Just very military. That's the best way to do it. And I mean that in as the biggest compliment, because his players really responded to that structure, and the structure of the regiment and the expectation, I think, is what he established in building this program. And basically my job was easy as I took over. My job was just to not screw it up, so there's just still a lot of expectations and similarities there. And of course, I added my own touch. And, you got to be an individual as a coach. And I tell that to all young coaches all the time. Don't be me. Don't try to be like me. Don't try to be like your former boss. Take what you like from your boss and run with it, and take what you don't like from your boss and don't ever do it, and make yourself the best version of yourself.
Right. Coach, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this year's version of the Atrisco Heritage Jaguars after these messages on the Sports Desk.
At the college level for the University of New Mexico, Dyer breakaway, Dyer for two, and here it is.
Aguino wants it again, and Brito says, give me that. Brito driving on the runner, gets the roll.
Good take.
There's Stanford being guarded by Asilian. Euro step, reverse layup is up and in. What a shot by Stanford to tie the game. Hudson Brown's facing guarding Licon. Licon will fire a jumper, banks it in. Banks in a three. What a shot by Licon.
Afford to miss the steal.
20 points now for Albrecht. Here comes Steverson. Defender on the hip. Doesn't matter. Showtime for Steverson.
Here's Duncan, 3! Duncan's got her second 3 of the game, and it's a big one. And then a steal by Jalissa Hines. Jalissa Hines goes for 2. She's got it. Quick 5-point turnaround.
Stolen away by Brown, spins through with the dribble, loses the handle. Mitchell picks it up, gives it to Jackson, flushed.
Really moving now. They need a bucket at the end of this. Oh, denied at the apex.
Mila Espinosa drives her way underneath. Espinosa chucks it up for 2.
Five seconds to play. Manning didn't see it. It's loose. Manning has it to Sandoval, and Aguino picks it up. Lund is going to sink that layup. That should be the dagger.
We would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible.
What's going on, Lobo Nation? Ja'Cory Krosky-Mirror here.
And I'm Devin Dampier. The Lobo football team is going through some changes, but we're here to stay.
We'll put in the work on the field and in the weight room, but we'll need your help off the field.
505 Sports Venture is leading the charge in the NIL space.
And you can be part of it.
Shorty, she better than all my intentions. Locked in, shorty, you got my attention. See your baby, I get you the business. Touchdown and pay you a visit.
Picture yourself in a jacuzzi hot tub, or your spouse, or kids. Water is good for the soul, and a jacuzzi in winter? Wow. Come in today to the Jacuzzi showroom and pick your escape. Jacuzzi, why not?
A burglary takes place in the United States approximately every 15 seconds. International Protective Service is your answer for commercial and residential security in all of Albuquerque. IPS will work with your monitoring company for fast, reliable response times. You can rest easy knowing you, your family, or your company is watched over by International Protective Service. Call International Protective Service today.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Networks. Channel 26 also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today, Atrisco Heritage Jaguars boys head coach Steve Heredia. It's 200th win on Friday against Rio Rancho, 101-97. I had to say that score twice on the radio when I did my report the other day because people were like, they'll probably like perk up like, what? Did I hear that right? I mean, the Lobos haven't hit 100 yet, have they? Almost against Utah State, 99 points, 89. They've been hovering around 100. You know, the NBA hits 100 every night. In some places in high school in New York, they probably hit it all the time. And back in the day, like we said, 100 points used to be the norm for Hobbs and Clovis back in the day. And even some Albuquerque schools, Wally Salata mentioned that to me. He hit 106 to 102 against El Dorado some years ago. And so coaching against Coach Salata, I'm sure it's always fun too, because he's gonna muck up something, man. You know, even as we speak now, he's probably in the lab working on something after he's got to teach or whatever he does over there. You know, so I'm sure you had a lot of fun getting ready for Coach Salata.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wally and I are really good friends as well. So we know each other really well. We enjoy coaching against each other. We hang out after games. There's not a whole lot of love loss after. You know what I mean? We'll hug each other and tell each other great job. Yeah, I mean we had a game this season with 106 points against the Cueva, and that game was
Oh, I did that game
we
too.
just
I mean,
we
yeah,
just didn't miss. Yeah. So did you do that game?
my son and I did. My son and I.
Your son? Oh, that's right. So, hey, you guys need to do more of our games. You know, both our three triple-digit games this year have been the Nunez guys. So, hey, I'm a superstitious baseball guy by nature. So, hey, you guys are more than welcome to keep coming and broadcasting our games.
That was a heck of a game too. I mean, we want to talk a little bit. We mentioned your past history in coaching, and you've been here at Atrisco Heritage for a few years now. And Latavius Morris, um, Brandon Lopez, Andres Santillanes, Matthias Sanchez, Marquise Renfro, Kadarius Sims. You know what, Marcus Casada, I thought gave you some. Michael Session came in, got a steal, a quick one. You only gave him a couple minutes, but he came in. I think he plays safety for the football team too, right? I think.
He's a receiver.
Okay.
A freshman.
Alex Xavier Crawford contributed. So you got Marquise at Latavius at 22.6, Marquise 16.3, Kadarius, who I really like a lot, 12.6. So those are your leading scores. You average 71.4 points per game. Talk a little bit about. Latavius is amazing. Okay, so Coach Salata mentioned that they stayed in the zone. He can split double teams at will. Gets in the paint, forget it. He can rise and fire. It's tough to stop him. Talk a little bit about. He's amazing. He had 40 points on Friday, and he's wolfing to the crowd a little bit. It's emotional. Those things happen. Talk a little bit about his game.
Yeah, so I mean, Tay grew up. He started on that side of town. He's kind of a Rio Rancho kid, so he has all that with knowing a lot of kids, a lot of players there. So he takes that to heart. That Rio Rancho game's big for him. The Cleveland game's big for him because he wants to show them that I'm the guy, that I was with you, now I'm against you, and he's super competitive. You won't meet a nicer kid off the court. His game on the court is nonstop. He's super quick, super athletic, shoots the ball well, and on top of it all, he has 100% confidence in his own ability. Sometimes he'll take the wildest, craziest shots that piss me off, to be frank, but he's so confident that he thinks he's going to make every shot he takes. And that's kind of what you need in your leading scorer sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. Splits double team, step back, get in the lane, rise and fire. Also played quarterback on the football team, and not a natural, I would say, read and go through the progressions quarterback, but an athlete. Once he got out of that pocket, forget it. Now I know you're watching those games and like, oh my gosh, get down, right? Every hit that he takes, you're a little nervous. I wouldn't blame you. And Marquise Renfro also played football too. Talk a little bit about Kadarius Sims. You set up a nice play for Kadarius Sims in regulation. Just didn't. A beautiful, beautiful shot, right? It just didn't go in, and it was right there. But talk a little bit about those two. You get contributions from Santillanes, your guards off the bench, Sanchez. They're solid contributors. Talk a little bit about about the rest of your roster.
Yeah, I mean, so we have 7 seniors. That's what a lot of people don't realize, I think, because the focus is so much on Latavius and Marquise that people overlook our experience. We have guys that gave us minutes last year, not a ton, but some, and got their feet wet at the varsity level. So now as seniors, they're really embracing their role, and our locker room is pretty tight right now, and you can't ask for more than a tight locker room heading towards the end of the season. Like you said, Marquise, great athlete, scores at the rim, gets to the rim, shoots the ball pretty well. Kadarius has a beautiful stroke, just has a really nice offensive game, real mild-mannered kid, real level-headed, just loves the game of basketball. And then, Matthias was giving us 10 points a game for most of the year, but it's gone down to about 8 now. And I mean, he just hits big shots. That's another senior for us. And then, like you said, Alex Xavier, he kind of does everything for us from a defensive standpoint, rebounding standpoint. Kind of keeps us together on the pressure because he's on that backside. He's starting to score a little more too lately, so being aggressive. And then, we played in the first quarter. I think we put in 11 different guys. When you play this style, you need minutes from multiple people, and they've embraced that. So it's been fun. It's been fun watching young kids get better and old kids get better all together.
You know what? I got to say this about Marquise. I told you this the other night. You mentioned the things he does, and he rebounds. He got a rebound on an offensive on a free throw, missed free throw, and those are ones Coach Salata would say, "Hey, we got to have those, right? We got to have those." But Marquise, I also saw this too, Coach. He makes that extra pass, man. He makes that extra pass. He's very unselfish. He's got a very high basketball IQ and a team one. I think it's kind of the glue for your team there. Latavius is Latavius, man. You're going to take the good with the bad, right? And then most of it, 89% is really, really good. The other part, he's an athlete. He's got that confidence. He's going to, put some shots up, and you're like, no. But you live with that. But Marquise, I think, does so many things. Fills up that stat. There's some great pictures of your team that you sent. But I think Marquise is a real key.
Yeah, I mean, so Coach Ortega developed the team first basketball mantra, and that's something that I really wanted to keep the tradition of. At times this season, last season, even when I was under Coach Ortega, you had to bring that back up to the kids. It is team first basketball, especially when kids make some semi-selfish decisions out there. I just think that the buy-in is huge with these guys. You mentioned making the extra pass. We talk about that all the time. And with making extra passes, sometimes it's easy to say and everyone wants to do it. But when you make that extra pass, that means you're turning down a decent look. But what it also means is you really trust the guy that you're making the extra pass to, that you trust that he's going to make that shot. And these kids really believe in each other. So, it's just fun. It's fun to be around. It's fun to coach, and it's a great environment.
And you're a big part of it. Okay, you've got Cleveland tomorrow night, as you mentioned. They beat you 78-62 on January 12th, just a couple of weeks ago, and it's a tough district. You mentioned Cleveland, Volcano Vista, Rio Rancho. Siebel is playing better under Gabe Martinez. They've got Steverson, Sandoval, Strat Schufeltz, Coach Zach Cole, who I have the utmost respect for, is one of the best coaches, no doubt, in the state. Got about a minute left, Coach. What do you got to do tomorrow night and the rest of the season in the district?
I think we just have to keep making shots. Cleveland got us pretty good in the semis of the Metro, and we didn't shoot the ball well. We were 3 for 20 from the three-point line, and that's typically not who we are. Cleveland shot it really well and just played an all-around really good game, and they whooped our butts. So we're looking forward to seeing them again tomorrow night.
Should be a good one, Coach. And your Atrisco Heritage Jaguars going to be definitely a part of that district race for sure. Coach, Atrisco Jaguars head coach Steve Heredia, we thank you so much for being our guest today on the Sports Desk. We wish you the best of luck in the remainder of the season.
All right, thanks, Ed, for having me. Go Jags.
You bet. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.